This is Brian Waller. I'm the Grafting Zoning Board of Appeals Chairman. Tonight's meeting will be held both remotely and in person. And this is consistent with Chapter 22 of the Acts of 22, which extends remote meeting protocols through March 31st, 2025. The agenda can be found on the Town of Grafton website, and the agenda has information on how to participate remotely. We know we have some people in the Zoom meeting, so it is active. Please note that the meeting is being recorded. All participation within this meeting will be visible to others. If anyone screen shares, it may be recorded and broadcast later. This meeting may feature public comment. For anyone that's attending virtually and in the room, anyone in the room, please step to the podium, state your name and address for your comment. Anyone attending virtually, use the raise hand feature in Zoom. And if you're only on the phone, we will coordinate getting your comments or enabling you to speak. And all meetings this evening, all votes this evening will be done by a roll call vote. All right. So the one item on the agenda this evening is case number 910-23 Snow Road. So I'd like to have the clerk read the legal notice.
The Grafton Board of Appeals has received a petition from Apartments at Snow Road, LLC, for 14 Snow Road, requesting that the Zoning Board of Appeals grant a comprehensive permit under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40B, to allow under Chapter 40B comprehensive permit the construction of 268 rental units in 4 buildings, of which 25%, which are 67 units, will be affordable, rented to median income families on 14.6 acres. The board will conduct a public hearing on October 3rd at 7 p.m. in conference rooms A and F at the Municipal Center, 30 Providence Road, Grafton, Mass. To consider this request and or take whatever action is necessary, including the granting of a finding, special permit, variance, or other necessary relief allowed under the zoning bylaw. Any person wishing to be heard in conjunction with this request should appear at the time and place designated or by letter to this board in time to be read at the hearing. The October 3rd, 2024 meeting may be accessed via either of the following means, via Zoom or telephone. Please note, individuals requiring special accommodation should contact the Zoning Board of Appeals. Zoning Board of Appeals, Brian Waller, William McCusker, Kay Reed, Peter Adams, Jiffy Thomas, and Alex Mejia.
Thank you. And actually, I think it makes sense for the board to introduce themselves and actually have our staff introduce themselves as well. Why don't we start with Kay and then we'll go to
Kay Reed.
Peter Adams.
Brian Waller.
Alex Mejia.
Brian Langevin.
Katrina Koshavos.
And Dan Hill, Special Counsel.
Thank you all. All right, so just a few announcements and comments before we get started. You can subscribe to announcements on the ZBA website to get information about future meetings, including this project and others, but just to make sure that if you want to be informed about this, you receive those notices. And this is intended to be a transparent process, and we want anyone that wants to speak to be heard. That opportunity may or may not be this evening. This is could be a 6-month process to review the application. So, there's many meetings over that time period, and I would say nearly all of those will have the opportunity for public comment. And depending on the number of people that want to speak tonight, we may limit the time for public comment. So just a few comments on 40B. and the ZBA's role with a project like this. So the developer brings a project to the town, and if it meets, or they propose a certain percentage of affordable housing, they get favorable treatment, I guess, in terms of encouragement, or the statutory scheme, I guess, encourages affordable housing within the state. And through this 40B process, it places a little weight on the developer side of the scale. So the ZBA has a few things.
Conference remain.
Okay,
Yeah.
downstairs?
Yeah, you can either stay up here or come downstairs, whatever you like. But there are chairs available down in conference room A.
Okay, we might as well go there. Okay, okay, thank you.
Dominic?
We thought it's full.
Technology.
Right. So the potential outcomes of this process is the board could grant a permit for the development or for the project as it's presented this evening. I would say that's unlikely. We could deny the project, which is also in most 40B cases, if a project is denied, it's certainly appealable, and appeals tend to favor the developer. The most likely outcome in most 40B projects is a comprehensive permit that has some conditions to it and some mitigation of the initial proposed development that more fits in line with the goals and concerns of the town. But we'll, over the course of the next 6 months, we'll see how that, we'll work through that. Let's see. And so no one on the board is a professional. We engage professionals, engineers, potentially hydrologists, traffic experts, that will review the plans and report back to us and advise us on concerns that we should raise and potential changes we should request. So with that feedback, we may propose changes to the develop. So Grafton right now is in Safe Harbor. And I'll let Dan Hill speak to this, about the meaning of that within the context of the 40B process. But it may or may not change the outcome of how we proceed this evening. Dan, can you just explain a little bit about the Safe Harbor?
Sure. So under Chapter 40B, the state agency that has supervision under Chapter 40B, which is the Executive Office of Housing in Livable Communities, formerly DHCD, now it's EOHLC. That agency has adopted regulations under the statute, and those regulations do provide for several kinds of safe harbors. I'm sorry?
Can't hear you back here.
Okay. The regulations provide for several types of safe harbors, and those safe harbors some of them are in the statute and some are regulatory. So the statutory safe harbors are if the town has 10% of its housing dedicated towards affordable housing, that's the housing unit minimum. If the town reaches 10%, the town's decision on a 40B application is automatically considered consistent with local needs, which is the statutory catchphrase, and that means whatever that decision says is upheld on an appeal. so it's immune from being attacked. There's another statutory safe harbor that says if the town has affordable housing on at least 1.5% of the land area in the town, that same effect. Grafton does not meet either of those two statutory safe harbors. What Grafton meets is what's called a housing production plan safe harbor, and that is basically an incentive that the state gives to towns to create housing on a regular basis. Every year, the town is supposed to create a percentage of its total housing stock as affordable. That's the goal. And so when a town reaches a goal, such as in this case, 1% or 2% of its affordable housing stock, of its total housing stock developed in 1 year as affordable, then the town is entitled to a safe harbor. So in this case, the town has met a threshold, I think, for a 2-year safe harbor, not just 1, but 2 years of safe harbor through the creation of affordable housing within the last year. And that's from projects that this board has approved, including, I believe, the last 2 projects the board approved with Upton Street and Pleasant Street. So the town basically said to the state, look, we've approved these projects, we've created affordable housing that meets the threshold under the housing production plan regulation. And the state then said, yep, we agree. We are certifying you as in compliance with this regulation, and you're therefore entitled to the safe harbor. So the town is in a safe harbor right now. Now, the way that works as a practical matter is that the zoning board can invoke the safe harbor when an application like this is presented to it. And the way that happens is under the regulations is that the board has to invoke the safe harbor in order to use it. Okay, so it's use it or lose it. If you don't invoke the safe harbor within, I think it's 2 weeks of the opening of the public hearing, then you waive it. And then what that means, if you waive it, is that you cannot essentially issue a decision that is determined to be consistent with local needs. If you invoke the safe harbor and you say to the applicant and to everybody else, we're in safe harbor, we are going to use this as a defense to an appeal, then the board can issue whatever decision it wants on this application, and that decision will be consistent with local needs and has to be affirmed on appeal. What this means is that the board can issue a decision however it wants. It doesn't mean the board has to deny the project. The board can still approve the project. The board could approve the project with conditions. The board could approve the project, for example, at a less dense project, a smaller number of units. The board could impose whatever conditions it wants. Whatever the board does has to be affirmed on appeal. Now, so basically the board needs to vote tonight to decide whether to invoke the safe harbor. In my 20 years of practicing 40B law around the state, I've never seen a board not invoke it because it doesn't make sense not to. I mean, it's because you would have the ability to basically control the destiny of this application. So typically a board will invoke it. You take a vote, and then that's basically notice to the applicant. You actually do have to provide a written notice to the applicant after you take the vote, and you provide that notice as well to the state. If the applicant thinks it's improper, that for some reason the town is not in safe harbor, or if there's some other argument for why it wasn't correct, the applicant can contest that, and they can file an appeal to the state, to EOHLC, and then the state will decide the appeal. And that happens pretty quickly. It typically will happen in a few weeks. If the developer chooses to appeal that, this hearing can be stayed. It's actually up to the applicant. If the applicant wants it to be stayed, the board can stay the hearing until that appeal is resolved. So that can happen. I'd recommend maybe doing that at the end of the meeting tonight. It's your prerogative. If you want to hear the applicant's presentation first, that's fine too, or take public comments. But that's generally how the safe harbor process works. There are definite steps that you can't miss. But if you make that vote tonight, then you should be in good hands.
Okay. Sure, Mr. Adams.
Peter, yeah, move closer to the mic.
Dan,
Just clarify a point, we can basically downsize this development if we wanted to, because we're in safe harbor.
Correct.
So if we said we'll take 10 houses, do they have to agree to it? They can't appeal that?
They can't appeal it, no. I mean, they can appeal it, but they're gonna lose because the decision will be consistent with local needs.
But if we did that tonight, we have no plan in front of us, nothing for that.
You can't, first of all, you can't do it tonight because the applicant has the right to appeal. So whatever happens tonight, the board shouldn't have another hearing until after that appeal has expired. But theoretically, at the next hearing, you could close the hearing, you could issue a decision. That decision could theoretically say, we'll allow you to have a project for 10 units. I don't recommend that. I think you ought to have a dialogue with the applicant to say, look, we don't like, 200, 300 units. We think this site is, perhaps, suitable, as the planning board said, for residential development, but this is too dense and we'd like to talk to you about a smaller project and let the applicant come back perhaps with a plan for a smaller project. That would be a more productive way to handle that. But legally, you are entitled to do whatever you want to do. You could deny the project and you could say to the applicant, we're denying this, but if you want to come back with something smaller, we'll hear it. That's probably a better way to handle
Well, I mean, that's
something
what,
like that.
that's what I'm looking at,
Yep.
yes.
And so if ultimately, once the board votes on the project, is there a time period from when the project can be resubmitted or they can submit a new application?
No, they can submit a new application anytime they want. It's not, there's no like cooling off period if
Yeah,
they're referring to. No, that doesn't happen with affordable housing. So they can resubmit. They have a project eligibility letter, which, as you may remember from other projects, they have to have a project eligibility letter from a state agency in order to apply for a permit. So if they want to redesign the project, they would have to get that first approved by the state agency and then come back to the zoning board and reapply.
Okay.
But if we invoke safe harbor, that puts us off for 2 years. And they can come right back.
No, they can come back whenever they want. You just have to keep invoking it if you don't like their project.
But only for 2 years.
Yeah, it's I don't have the letter in front
I mean,
of me.
there
But the
is-
letter has the deadline in it.
Yeah.
or the-
Deadline.
Right now, but then there's other stuff that will be coming in that will get put into that count as it gets
Because that could
permitted.
change, safe harbor count could change.
Right,
next 2 years,
because with
yeah.
the other developments that are proposed and permitted and being built, so once those affordable units then go in, so the safe harbor could be extended,
Oh, really?
depending on the other developments
Oh.
coming in, yeah,
Okay.
the other
Current-
units.
The current safe harbor expires February 25th, 2026.
Thank you.
Right.
February, a year and a half.
Yeah, you received a
already-
2-year certification on August 9th of 2024.
Yeah.
And that's because you produced at least 1% affordable housing.
So it's from August or February?
Now, it's effective as of February.
They go back to February.
It's from the date of when you met the threshold,
Oh,
which
okay.
was with the approval of the Upton Street project. So it's February 26, 2024 to February 26, 2026.
Okay. So with that context, I guess I will turn it over to the applicant. And you're welcome to make your presentation. And we can sort of go from there.
Could you ask him to speak into the microphone so we can hear back here, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, John Grenier, JM Grenier Associates.
Can't hear you.
I'm gonna need the microphone.
Can Bill turn that thing up?
Yeah, Bill, turn it up.
Turned it up as loud as I can here. I'll text Bill.
I'll do the best I can. For the record, John Grenier, JM Grenier Associates. My firm is the civil engineer who is working with the developer on this project. I can introduce the development team. On my far left is Stephen Benincasa, who is the principal of the firm that is proposing this. Next to him is James Benincasa, who is also part of the development team. He's a partner in the project. And to my right is Cohen Babcock, who he is a project executive. He runs and manages many of the projects that the applicant has done over the past number of years. So what I'd like to do is, I've introduced the development team, go through some of the other members of the development team, give you a brief history of other projects and the qualifications of the developer, and then we can go into the specifics of this particular project. So we can go to the next.
I'm not up on the
Oh.
slide.
Hold on, I have to share.
Okay.
Actually,
It'd be better if they came up to the podium.
That's what I was thinking
probably.
too. Would you mind, or actually, if you can either sit at this seat or stand at the podium, and I think just speaking in that direction, I think will help.
Okay. Yeah, I can stand up at the podium.
You should be able to share. I just put you can share, so you should be able to.
So I just hit
I-
share.
Those of you in the audience, if you're speaking up, it's getting picked up on the mics, so you kind of need to not talk also. And you need to mute, because you're sharing, you need to mute your mic on your computer.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The architectural firm that is preparing all of the design plans for all of the multifamily buildings is Gate 17. They have over 80 years of combined experience in architectural design and planning. Gate 17 is a leader in multifamily design. They have licenses in 28 states. And to date, they've constructed over 26,000 units ranging from Tennessee all the way up to Maine. So they're very experienced in this, and it's a firm that we have worked with on multiple projects in the past. Into the qualifications for the developer, the development team has had experience over the past 50 plus years. They have many projects ranging from many single-family house developments in Boylston, in Holden, Hopkinton, Northborough, Shrewsbury, Sturbridge, Sutton, Upton, a number of developments in Westboro, including single-family house developments, 100-unit condo developments. In addition, they've done multifamily, this type of 40B projects in Boylston, as well as in Millbury, and they have experience with many over 55 type projects. So totaling up all of the projects they've done over the number of the years, they have a total development worth over $800 million over the past 50 years, looking at the project values that they have done. So they've been very successful, and they've done a number of very high-end and successful projects over the years. In terms,
Can I just pause you there for 1 second?
I'm
Could
sorry,
you
go ahead.
Make that full screen, or is that possible?
If you tell me how to do it.
There should be a button at the very bottom. There's a slider bar. Should be that icon
Where?
right next to it.
The same slider bar.
Yeah, this down
To the
Right
left, the
next
little
to it.
presentation.
to the
To the
left.
left. Other left. Yep.
That one?
Yep.
There we go.
Thank
Thank you.
And getting into the quality and type of product that they have been constructing, they have been implementing many sustainable development principles with sustainable construction, which provides high quality workforce housing in economically growing communities. They're using the latest modeling and engineering technologies to construct fossil-free and energy-efficient homes and communities that help support the health, well-being, and creating long, sustainable, energy-efficient projects. They have implemented green design, which the philosophy of the green design is to use LEED principles, designs that maximize sustainability, avoid sensitive lands, maximization of open space, include stormwater management, extensive landscaping, access to community resources, transit and infrastructure, and again, fossil-free energy efficient HVAC, along with building products and techniques to reduce the overall carbon footprint. They have energy efficiency. They've used the most advanced framing designs. These techniques significantly reduce the overall amount of lumber used, and also are very conducive to the effective installation of environmentally friendly insulations such as plant-based cellulose. They're committed to the use of industry-leading all-electric cold climate heat pump HVAC systems. And once installed, the systems are commissioned in alongside the overall building envelope, and all commissioning is done by a contracted third-party HERS rater in accordance with Energy Star multifamily standards. So getting into the specifics of this project, the parcel, if people are not familiar, it's a 14.6 acre site that gains access from Snow Road. The current parcel has one single family home that is on it. The remainder of the parcel is wooded with some lawn areas. On the north side, the neighborhood contains single-family houses along both sides of Snow Road, as well as along Susan Terrace. And to the west, there are apartment buildings managed by the Grafton Housing Authority, as well as a single and two-family dwelling on the other side of Snow Road. And to the south, there is a commercial development along Worcester Street with the shopping center, the Stop and Shop shopping center. And then to the far east of the property is land that's owned by the Grafton Water District. So what we are proposing is a 268 unit multifamily project, which includes also 44 townhomes as part of that project. The number of units consists of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. On average, the unit sizes are just over 1,200 square feet. There are 120 one-bedroom units, 56 two-bedroom units, 48 three-bedroom units in the apartment building, and again, as I said, 44 townhouse-type units. They will also be providing many amenities. There will be a fitness center, a community room, there'd be a resident cafe, there's a work from home space, there's a conference room. They would have an outdoor pool and patio area with grilling stations and a resident courtyard. They will also have a dog park and a playground area, a dog washing station, some private patios and decks, and some unit work from home spaces. So if you go to the elevation plan. So this is the front elevation of one of the 4 apartment style buildings. Again, these are plans that are done by Gate 17 that have years of experience with these types of developments, and we've been working with them over the last few years. If you can go to the, Jim, you go to the site plan. Flip right there. Again, I said this is on the north side. This is the overall site plan. It's on the north side of Route 122. on the easterly side of Snow Road. As you see, there's an entrance at the center portion of the site. It's a double-barreled entryway. In the center, that's where the clubhouse with amenities, they have a pool, a patio area, and there's a playground. On the exterior, or the perimeter, that is where all of the townhouses are located. So they're on the westerly and northerly portion of the site. The multifamily apartment buildings are to the center of the site and on the easterly side of the site in the back, and then backing up to where the Stop and Shop Plaza is, and sprinkled throughout the development there are a number of multi-garage buildings. So if tenants want to have additional garage space, they have the ability for that. And just to give you an overview of how we came up with this design, to our south is the Stop and Shop Plaza. That's the commercial corridor. As you go to the north on Snow Road, obviously that's more residential. We have residential butters to our north. So in the creation of this design, we implemented the use of the townhouses, which are colonial, New England style townhouses, which are obviously much smaller than the multifamily apartment buildings. So we placed the smaller, lower profile development townhouse styles on both the west and the north side. And then we contained the larger multi-story buildings. We have 3-story buildings in the center of the site, and then on the far east side those are 4-story, 2 4-story buildings. So we kept those buildings as far away from the abutting single-family residences, kept them in the center and to the far east portions of the site, just for the scaling and the massing. They would be set further back and would have less visual impact on the neighborhood. Jimmy, want to go to the next? So for relevant communities, just to give you a flavor of the types of development that our group has constructed recently, the most recent project that has been constructed is in Boylston, north of 290, off of 140 on the corner of Sewell Street and 140. This is a 4-story building that was actually just completed this summer. So this is a recent type development that the applicant has completed. This was, as you can see, go to the next slide. They used many types of materials, good architecture. Again, this was Gate 17 design. They have done a massive amount of landscaping, a lot of mature landscaping, so you're not waiting years for the landscaping to grow up and fill in. You have some interior pictures. There is one of the lobbies. There is in the back, keep on going, there's that's a mail room that is on the first floor. There's the lobby, there's an elevator. You can look, it's all modern style, modern construction. These are one of the center hallways with access to a number of the units. Again, modern construction, modern styles, pleasing to the eye. They have good design features. And Jim, if you can, again, there's a kitchenette. They use all energy efficient and LEED certified appliances. All of the materials, hardwood flooring or engineered hardwood flooring, just good looking first class projects. So a lot of people, they look at, 40B, it's going to be, something that is quote unquote substandard. This developer prides himself on doing first class, first quality projects that would be a benefit to the housing stock in town, provide 25% affordable housing. There's no difference between the affordable product and the market rate product. They're all consistent throughout the entire building. Everything is done, again, in my opinion, and hopefully yours, first class, first quality, something that would be a benefit to the town, not just today, but in the long term. Is there anything else I'm forgetting? I think that's an overview. You can, Jim, you can thumb through some of the pictures so they can kind of see what they have been doing. One other thing I'd like to add is I know with a project of this scale, there is going to be an increase, obviously, in traffic in the area. We are cognizant of that. We did have a full traffic study performed by our traffic engineer. This is something that's going to be reviewed by the town's consultant traffic engineer. There will be increases in traffic, obviously going out to 122. We know that the intersection at 122 and Snow Road is not ideal. It comes at an awkward angle. In that analysis, it was the recommendation from our traffic engineer to add a turning lane, a dedicated right-hand turning lane. So when you're going from Snow Road onto 122, have a right turn only dedicated turning lane. So that would effectively help any queuing and also provide good access for anybody heading north. In addition to that, it was also recommended that we provide a sidewalk going from this portion of Snow Road all the way down to where the Stop and Shop Plaza is. So there's good connectivity to whether it's shopping. There's also a WRTA bus stop that is located in the Stop and Shop Plaza. So that provides good connectivity for any residents who would be walking and getting access to whether it's amenities off-site or for transportation. So that's kind of a 10,000 feet up overview of the whole project. We're sure that everybody's going to have questions and concerns. Change doesn't come easy, but what we would like to do is welcome your comments, welcome your concerns, do everything we can to address those concerns and work with the town during this process so that this is a final project that everybody can be happy with and proud of, and we'd like to be part of the community. So with that, I'll put it to the chair with any additional items or questions or comments.
All right. So how many of the projects that you listed were 40B projects versus full rate?
Actually, just the last one was a total 40B, although we have affordable components in the other projects, but they're not a full 40B. So they did have affordable components in all those projects.
And so you're saying in every project you've done, there's been
Affordable component, yes, sir. But 40B is just the last one, the trail side one.
okay.
That's a full 25% affordable component.
Where is that one? Trails,
That's a 100 Shrewsbury Street in Boylston. Boylston.
trail side?
100 Shrewsbury Street.
In Boylston.
290.
Yeah.
All right. So any questions from the board?
Mr. Chair, I think one question, out of all the projects, I think you were naming some of the towns. Have you ever done a project in Grafton?
I'm presently building in Grafton. I've done other developments in Grafton throughout the years.
Okay.
Single-family developments.
Single family.
Yes, sir.
Can you give me where are those, or can you just give me an example?
We finished one about 4 years ago on Grist Mill. off of Pleasant Street. We have 38 lot subdivision right now off of Adams Road in Grafton. The Ridings. I've done a few scattered single families here and there. I just can't recall them right now. Our projects in Westboro, they overlap the two towns, Westboro and Grafton both. So
Okay. Well, I know one of the biggest concerns will be traffic. I know that there was a recommendation for a dedicated turning lane. What about a traffic light at that intersection?
So we did have a traffic engineer look at the site, and they gave it a rating. Was it?
Yeah, I can, well, right now, the way, if people don't know, they rate traffic at intersections from A, like you do in school, A through F. Currently, the intersection as it is today is an E, which just above an F. And that, with this development, it would go to an F when it's done. With the implementation of a turning lane, it would go from a B, or with the full development, to a C. So it would be a marked improvement.
Not yet.
Not
It's
yet.
not open for public comment. They'll
It would
announce
be
when
marked
it's time for
improvement to
public
what is
comment.
there now. The issue with putting a light at that intersection, there is the light that is just to the south at the Stop and Shop Plaza.
Right.
So I know on other projects, what they've done is they've coordinated the signalization, and they've tuned up the timing on the red lights to make sure there's gaps so that people can get out. But the proximity of having that light with this light just to the north, I don't think that would,
It's too close.
it's too close. It's too close.
Our past experience also working on a state road is the town and the applicant has very little say. It's really a DOT call. And that's what we found in other developments.
And I believe it's an application to the DOT, right?
It is. So.
And what other
So,
questions?
so we did propose to, as part of our application, we did propose to construct that turning lane without, your request. We just offered that up front. So our traffic, so we imagine that we'll have a traffic meeting with our traffic engineer, with your peer review, and they'll run through all this. Obviously, none of us are traffic engineers. We have the report, we can tell you the results, but the traffic engineers would have dialogue among themselves, so.
And just for
DOT.
And just for those that that are present for the meeting, these questions are, I think, very cursory at this stage. And we will drill into these details and, or drill into these topics in much more granular detail with the help of our reviewing professionals. So this isn't by any means, this is really just an initial raising of these issues and starting that dialogue, but there will be much more to come on all of these. So I guess one of the other significant issues is the stormwater and the Grafton Water District land and run up into that. What type of mitigation is proposed for that?
So we are in a water supply protection overlay district, which is zone 2, and typically in zone 2s, what that restricts you on is if you had on-site septic, it would maximize the flows. We have municipal sewer and water, so Septic systems aren't even relevant. In terms of stormwater management, what we are required to do if you're in this overlay district is typically, when you have your drainage runoff, you're looking to treat it, and you're also looking to recharge the runoff into the ground. So you're basically putting from your impervious surfaces, you're not letting it just run off, you're capturing it, you're making sure it's clean. Where we're in a water supply protection overlay district, there is a higher standard for treatment of your runoff before you infiltrate it into the ground. So with the DEP standards for stormwater, you're required to have 44%, let's say TSS, it's total suspended solid removal prior to recharging the water into the ground. So our pre-treatment standard catch basins with deep sumps and hoods, and then prior to it going into what we have an infiltration basin in the northeast portion of the site, which would be the where those buildings were in the back. In the back, you want to go to the we're out of control. Yeah. No. In the back portion of the site, we have an infiltration basin, so we're also employing proprietary CDS units, which those and those are approved by DEP as a means of providing additional removal of total suspended solids from the runoff, so that you're basically infiltrating clean water back into the ground. We've looked at the site, all the soil maps. This area has good sandy, gravelly material, so having the ability to recharge is really, we don't think is a concern because of the types of soils. It's all sand and gravel. It's a fairly flat site, minimal grade changes throughout the site, except in the area where the detention basin is, because we need to berm that up and contain the water. So everything that we have done is pretty standard. Every town has a zone 2, even in Boylston, the projects we've done, we're in proximity to zone 2 to some of the town wells, and these are the same methods and that we use in all these types of projects. It's not uncommon. And again, these are the same types of things that your consultant engineer would be reviewing, making sure that our calculations are correct, that the amount of water that we are infiltrating meets all of these standards. So, but it's nothing that's uncommon. We do it in every town.
Are there any specific steps that you took to compensate for the fact that you guys are going to propose literally twice as much impervious surface as what the bylaw would allow, from 25 to 51%?
Again, it's capturing it, making sure that we are infiltrating. You're supposed to infiltrate the first 1 inch of runoff over what the entire impervious area, so rooftops, paved areas, whatnot. We're required to, whatever that area is, times 1 inch, that's the minimum amount of volume that we're required to recharge into the ground. So where there's more impervious area, we're recharging more.
And just to make sure we're working off of the latest and greatest, the presentation that you had a slightly different unit count than the site plans that are on the website. Your presentation had 48 3 bedrooms, 56 2 bedrooms. The site plans had 90 2 bedrooms and 14 3 bedrooms. Just want to make sure which one's right.
Did you have the right?
My house.
I can tell you right now. This.
Didn't even say anything.
Is that it? Is that me? So, what was we have, 121 bedrooms, 90 2-bedrooms, 14 3-bedroom flats, and 44 3-bedroom townhouses.
Yeah, that's what we've got in the site plan. I think the presentation had something different.
Okay,
Good.
yeah.
It was more equally split between 2 and 3 bedroom, I think.
Yeah.
You have good eyes.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Thomas?
question on the wildlife habitats. Have you guys considered anything to mitigate that, or
I'm sorry, what was
the wildlife
Wildlife
habitats?
About the one in the back.
There is off-site, to the east, there is, habitat there's turtle habitat. We have been, in contact and had multiple meetings with Natural Heritage. They're the governing body that, controls development within, habitat areas. And if you can, on the plan, the majority of the easterly portion of the site, where the drainage is, and also there's a flatter area in the back. We had multiple meetings with them, and they wanted us to make sure that we're keeping that area undisturbed, green, buffer zone, so that we're not impacting the wildlife. In particular, there is turtle habitat back there. So that whole easterly portion of the site is going to be left untouched, to make sure that we're not impacting wildlife in that corridor.
The thing with the zone two, when we were down this road within the last year, I mean, we received a memo from the Grafton Water District saying there's enough water, basically. And they would like a condition on the plans, but, I mean, on the permit, but, they said nothing about being in a zone two. So we probably should request a comment on that from them, but as much to everybody in the audience, I don't see a smoking gun there. And, on the history of your building, off of Pleasant Street, you built Gristmill Village
Yes, sir.
on maintenance's land?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Actually, that came in front of this board before they redesigned it. That was a 40B with, I don't know, 40, 50 houses?
That was before me.
Yeah, what project was that? What was it called?
Maybe Gristmill Village?
And that's what we called it, but I don't know if the first applicant called
But
it.
it came, we had a couple hearings on it, and, I don't think you were involved,
I was not, sir.
and it went away.
It did.
And it boiled down to, what's it, 10 in there, or 8?
10.
Yeah,
It's
10.
off Pleasant,
Ten.
Gristmill.
It's 10.
10.
I live there.
Oh, okay. So, I'd ask you if you lived like the house, but I don't want to put you on the spot, so.
No, mentioning the prior development that was proposed there, speaking to some of the neighbors that obviously were there longer than
Brian,
I
move
was.
closer to your mic,
Sorry.
sorry.
One of the concerns that they had mentioned there was for that development was ease of access getting in and out.
Yeah.
And they had considered putting in a second outlet out to Gristmill Road from, so you'd have two, one to Pleasant Street, one to Gristmill. One of the concerns I had here was that there's only one inlet. All the traffic is coming in and out of Snow Road. Any concerns there with the volume of people? Not specific to traffic, just that you have that many units with only one outlet.
What we find is when we propose it's a high dense development. That's what affordable housing is. High density. Everyone gets kind of taken back when you see that amount of units, you see that, these building styles, the flats, but that's what affordable housing is. We build high-end $1 million houses in other areas, and there's a limited portion of the population that can afford those. Our kids are not going to afford those, that's for sure. But what we find with these type of buildings is they attract younger workers, and we also attract seniors. And a major reason why the seniors get attracted to these is because they're elevated buildings. So if someone has any kind of a disability, or if you're bad knee, which happens when you start to get older, in any event, it looks like a very dense development. But when you actually sit outside one of those developments and you look and you count the traffic, it's literally not there. I guarantee, if this gets approved, if this gets built, if you sat out front there, you would be surprised the very little amount of activity that you would really see.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm sure, there'll be lots of conversations specific to density. I was just focused on that one way in, one way out.
We got a double barrel there. We really don't see a problem with that at all. Honestly, when we propose,
This one? Oh, that is.
okay, when we propose something, we look at it as livability ourselves, because if we don't build a project that's livable, that works well, then we're not going to be successful. So we vote with our wallet, and to make sure that it all works. So this isn't just a plan that we come in and see how much we can fit in there. We make sure everything works. We make sure the parking works. We make sure we have good open space. We make sure we have good amenity area. The project has to work, otherwise it'll fail. And if it fails, I'll fail. I haven't failed yet, and I hope never to.
No, I imagine if there was a significant concern, it probably would have been covered in the police chief's comments, and he didn't mention anything.
And just to give you a little bit of scale for that double barrel entranceway, typical driveways, they're 24 feet wide. In some instances, they'll be 20 to 22 feet wide. For that double barrel entranceway, we have 18-foot wide going in. There's a 8-foot wide cobblestone, like rumble strip in the middle, and then another 18-foot wide for the exit. So they're extra wide. Obviously, you need that for emergency vehicles coming in. You're going to have moving trucks coming in and out. So we widen up that, and then the loop road going around is 24 feet wide. And then in some of the parking areas, we can go a little bit narrower if it's one-way traffic. If it's not two-way traffic, we can go to 20 or 22. But the standard we do have for the most part for the loop roads is 24 feet, and then we widen up that entranceway and make it double barreled so that you don't have, you have the ability for larger vehicles, whether it's emergency vehicles or whatnot, to be able to get in and out of there safely.
If we don't make those roadways wide enough, and let me first clarify that that's the least attractive part of our development is the pavement. We really hate the pavement, but we have to have the pavement. And if our pavement isn't wide enough, it doesn't work, then we're not going to pass the fire department. So we know that from past experience, that the fire truck, we have to meet all the turning radiuses of the fire trucks, otherwise it's not going to fly. So we've done a plan here that we believe will pass the fire truck test.
They've provided comments citing some of those concerns.
And have you received those initial comments? You've seen those?
I was going through the website, and I didn't know that all of the comments, and whether it's from butters, residents, town officials, is on there. So I just saw that the other day. So we're going to be starting to pour into those.
Every comment that comes in, everything will be posted on the webpage.
Right.
Which
right.
I will need a copy of this presentation to also upload onto
Okay.
the webpage.
Was there any community outreach or anything to the abutters prior to the design or anywhere along the way?
No, we did meet with the selectmen. This is a LIP project, which is limited impact development. LIP.
So we walked the site. Obviously, we walked the site with the selectmen. We have not met with any of the direct abutters yet. Although obviously we welcome to do that, but we did walk the site with the selectmen, we walked the site with the state, and we're here to start the process and get input from the board, abutters, town officials. Again, we're looking to work with everyone.
All right. So any other questions or comments from the board? Dan, did you have?
Sure, I can provide my initial impressions as I typically do with these projects, and what I see to be the primary substantive issues that the board should be really focusing on as we go forward in the hearing. And I think I would just start by making the comment that probably the most important role of the zoning board in a Chapter 40B process is deciding what waivers to grant and which waivers to deny, and maybe which waivers to partially allow, because ultimately that's the purpose of Chapter 40B. The purpose of Chapter 40B was to allow an applicant who proposes affordable housing to get zoning relief from the town in order to make a project viable and economic. And if the board doesn't provide the zoning relief and the developer thinks that creates an uneconomic condition for the project, that's grounds for an appeal. Again, if we weren't in safe harbor. But so that really is the ultimate test in a Chapter 40B application is does this project need the waivers that it's asking for, and what impact do these waivers have on the community? Do these waivers result in impacts that relate to public health, public safety, planning, or the environment? And so you have a lot of bylaws that were very rationally adopted over the years that protect those things: health, safety, environmental, and planning. You have, and this project I think implicates some of those bylaws really clearly. The one that is probably the most striking is the water supply protection district in your zoning bylaw. Because this project is in a zone 2, it triggers what it would ordinarily trigger a special permit under the water supply protection overlay district. So that's one of the waivers that they need. And as Brian noted, there's requirements in that bylaw relating to impervious surfaces, and there's actually even more than that. I did want to just show a map that I had prepared. I'm going to plug in my computer.
Hold on, I gotta switch.
Okay, I hope you can all see that. So this is a snapshot of the Mass GIS website, and it's actually a really great tool if folks want to take a look at it on your own time. It's called Mass Mapper, and it's a GIS, basically a GIS tool that you can plug in any address and then apply layers to it, and the layers are here in the right hand column. So what I did is I took the project site, which is labeled here, and I added all the layers that Mass.
People on Zoom can't see it, so you're gonna have to share your screen through Zoom instead of that.
Oh, well, I'm not in Zoom.
Oh, you're not in Zoom. Okay.
So we can
Hold
provide.
on. Let me see if I can.
We could also provide this after the meeting.
Yeah. For those of you in Zoom who say you can't see it, I will upload it to the website.
Yeah, it's really not critical
No.
tonight. So
Back on. There we go.
okay, so what this snapshot tells us is a few things. Number one, we're in a zone 2.
Email it to me so I can put it on. Because if you share it, knocks us out of Zoom.
I'm sorry. Do you want me to email to you?
Yeah.
Sure.
And then I'll share it.
Okay. Perfect.
I just love when you sit next to somebody and you have to email them. That just,
Well, Dan's not in the Zoom link. That's,
I know.
He's live,
It's like,
so-
oh,
Peter, you're so old school.
oh yeah, I'm terrible.
My kids text me from their bedrooms, so.
Alright, let's See if I get it. Come on. I should.
My kids text me, I get it the next, I read it the next day, then they yell at me. But it gets them to call me.
No, the whole land use. So it looks like they.
Are you building off Adams Road yet?
Yes,
Is the road open now?
yeah.
Oh, the last time I was by there, there was a gate up or something
Open,
was up.
but it's
that
got
you
a
couldn't
sign
get
on
in.
it.
You know,
Residential. It sounds like.
we've gotten some we got a lot of traffic through there when we first built the road because
Right?
people's GPS was directing them through there, and we just had more traffic than we wanted.
That quick it was doing
That
it?
worked. It's amazing.
That's what I'm interpreting as like, out of this.
People,
This is
please
what-
keep your comments
this
or
is
you
also
will be
the
asked to
commercial.
leave the meeting. I'm sorry, okay?
So yeah, we just actually started framing the first house over there, off of Adams Road.
Just in
So it's like a
Westboro, though.
sliver?
Did you start in Westboro?
We've been working in Westboro
Yeah.
now for
Oh.
a year now.
Yeah, so the first one in Grafton you started?
We just started the first one in Grafton, yeah.
Okay, here we go.
That's an open space development. We've got extensive walking trails in there. It's nice development.
Yeah.
No.
They're not, because they're actual. But we could re-ask, you know, put something there for the residents,
Rotate.
you know,
Oh,
abide by that.
That's fine, that's fine.
okay.
All right, so Mr. Chairman, just going back to the plan or map. So this is a map from GIS, and there's several data layers that I added and overlaid to it. I also put these notes on it myself. So the project site is on the left. You can see it marked project site. The big circle where the mouse is that's the municipal well, and the circle is the 400-foot radius around the well. That is what's called a Zone 1 wellhead protection area. Nothing is allowed to be done in a Zone 1, period. You cannot do anything in a Zone 1, except for having conservation land. I mean, this wellhead obviously has a shack, there's a few things going on there, but nothing that could threaten the well. The reason we have wellhead protection areas is that wells take water from the ground, and things that get into the ground, that leach into the ground, will end up in the well water, and that well water will end up in your faucets. So this 400-foot radius is basically the state minimum radius for wellhead protection. Then the Zone 2, so we have a Zone 2, there's a Zone 1, a Zone 2, and a Zone 3. The Zone 2 extends in both directions. You can't see it on this plan, but if you go onto MassGIS, you can see the map. And the Zone 2 basically goes to the northwest and the southeast in this location. There's actually more wells further to the northwest. So the entire project site is in the Zone 2, but a lot of the neighborhood beyond it is also in the Zone 2. And the Zone 2 is what brings this project within your water supply protection district bylaw. The also shown in this plan is you see a PH 1062, and then there's a yellow boundary. That is the priority habitat that was referenced by Mr. Grenier. That I believe is the box turtle, I believe is the species that triggered that habitat delineation. So basically what happened.
It's a vernal pool, yeah.
So basically what happened here was that somebody flagged the fact that there was a protected species in this area and a habitat for protected species. And the state agency that oversees this natural heritage program came out and said, sure, we agree that this area is habitat for a protected species. So they mapped it. It's now on the official atlas that Natural Heritage keeps for these types of habitat areas around the state. And so PH means priority habitat, and that's the number that's associated with it. The implication of this is that the project needs to get a permit from the state, from Natural Heritage, to have the project go forward. And the permit is called a take permit, TAKE, which is kind of a strange term, but it basically means that the project the project would be permitted, provided that it complies with a bunch of conditions that the state deems is necessary to protect the habitat. And I think what Mr. Grenier was saying is that the actual habitat, known habitat for the turtles is on the conservation land to the east. Is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that's where they would,
Right.
that's what the stream is, the wetland is, and that's adjacent to that is where they would be breeding.
Okay.
Potentially.
So the state may approve this, but I'm assuming that hasn't happened yet. But that's an application process the applicant has to go through.
And we're almost at the finish line with that process. What they decided was that, this project, given a buffer zone, would not negatively affect the habitat. So, that's why we left on the locust property, we left, I believe it's like a 200-foot buffer on the easterly side of the project so that we wouldn't be impacting the habitat on that.
Okay. So just going back to this map, so we discussed the zone 1, the zone 2, and the priority habitat. Now going back to your bylaw, the water supply protection district bylaw, the one of the standards in that bylaw, which I'm going to pull up, and I just lost my screen, but one of the standards is that basically thou shalt not harm the water supply, right? So a project should not get a special permit unless it can demonstrate that it's going to not degrade the groundwater quality. And that's important because the point of a zone 2 is that basically the theory is that any drop of water that lands on the land that's in the zone 2 will eventually migrate and make its way to the wellhead. So we don't want people to be putting things into the ground that could potentially spoil the water that ends up in the wellhead area. Groundwater is a very interesting topic. There's a whole science behind it. It's called hydrology or hydrogeology, and there's a lot of recognized ways to model this because it's a real threat, and it's a threat obviously not just in Grafton but everywhere where there's a lot of development pressure but a limited amount of water that we need to survive on. And so there's basically this cottage industry of scientists who do this work on a daily basis that model what effects projects have on groundwater quality. We had, I think, discussed on the kind of periphery some of these issues in prior projects. We had a couple projects in the past in Zone 2s that we discussed. I think the Pleasant Street project was in Zone 2.
Pleasant Street.
Stretching way back, there was I remember a project. I can't remember the name of the road now, but there's been several projects that we've had some concerns about impacts on Zone 2s. This one is actually very unique in that it's not just in a Zone 2, but it's actually abutting the wellhead, and that to me is obviously a little bit more concerning. That we really need to make sure that this project's not going to have an impact, because the farther away a project is from a well, you're getting a little bit of protection, because any pollutants that go in the ground, they have to travel from that area to the well, and as pollutants travel in the soils and the groundwater, often what happens is called attenuation, that the concentration or the toxicity of these pollutants dissipates or dissolves over that period of time as well as travel. Here, the stormwater is proposed to be recharged in that northeast corner, which I've flagged on the map, and that is obviously very close to the wellhead area. The overflow from the discharge point, that's the discharge point for the runoff from the project. The overflow would go into that isolated wetland that's in blue, and that isolated wetland, we don't know really anything about it. We don't know if that's hydraulically connected at all to the stream to the east. It may be, it may not be. If it is, then that would be a concern, because if the runoff that goes into the wetland is contaminated or polluted, then that runoff could end up in the stream. That stream, as you can tell from this map, maybe you can tell, maybe it's kind of hard to see, but that stream actually does go right through the wellhead. And that would be basically that stream contributes to the water that's pulled out of the well. So the way I'm seeing this, I think this is really priority issue number one for the board, because this project needs a waiver from the water supply protection district, and it does have a potential pollution source from the stormwater system. Now the applicant, can say that they meet the stormwater standards, and the stormwater standards do address water quality issues. But what I've learned over the years as just a citizen scientist, a lawyer that's done a lot of environmental work, is that there's some things that can't be taken out of stormwater. Phosphorus is a problem. There's heavy metals. There's other things, especially in road runoff, that simply can't be taken out. I mean, total suspended solids, that's like sand, and that can be taken out through traps and storm scepter units and things like that. That is effective, and we know that the state regulates that pretty heavily. I'm not sure. I thought it was 80% TSS. Maybe it's 40.
But the pretreatment's 44%.
Okay. By the time it gets out, it has to be higher, right?
Yes.
And then the federal, at the federal level, it's actually 90%, and that would apply here because this Grafton is an MS4 community. So there are some regulations that require pre-treatment and getting the bad stuff out of the stormwater before it gets into a wetland. But there's also some things that can't effectively be taken out of the stormwater runoff. So I guess this is a long way of saying I think this is an issue the board would want to pay very close attention to through this process. And one of the things that your bylaw, the zoning bylaw, actually requires with a special permit application is a hydrology study that's prepared by a hydrologist and then peer reviewed by in that case, the planning board. So again, if we're moving forward with this project, I think that's something that I would recommend is that that the applicant provide a hydrogeological study that would analyze the impacts of the potential runoff to the well area and using the modeling that I described before. With respect to traffic, this is also obviously a big issue, and a couple things that I noted is that the intersection for the project is directly across the street from a house. I don't know if that family is here tonight, but that is not really an ideal alignment, and it's also not ideal because Maxwell Street is not that far from the intersection of this street, and you generally want to line up intersecting streets. You don't want to have them offset by a few feet, and but the traffic engineers can speak to those issues, and I think the Snow Road intersection, obviously the Snow Road intersection with is it Worcester Street?
Yeah.
At that point, I think that is very problematic. I drove by there tonight, and as I was trying to leave Snow Road and take a left, I couldn't turn. When I turned right to look, you can't see the traffic. Yep. So the
Okay,
right.
people, please keep your comments to yourself until you have a time to speak, or you will be asked to leave the meeting.
So the right-hand turn lane, I'm not sure what that. I mean, maybe that helps on one issue, but I don't think it helps with the sight distance issue that I think a lot of people would face trying to take a left out of there. But there's always solutions. There's always engineering solutions. The question is what would it take and how hard would it be? So yeah, I think those are the two biggest issues that I'm seeing, and I think those are issues that we'd want to get peer review involved in. And I think at the end of the meeting, after public comment, one of the things the board needs to talk about is what level of peer review the board wants to engage in. Who should we talk to in terms of peer review consultants, and get that process started.
Can I ask a question?
Let's read.
So how does the process work if we're in safe harbor? Do we keep going through all this? We look at waivers. Even if we can't do anything for 2 years.
No,
so we keep going through this even though we're in safe harbor.
Yeah, you can. It's really up to the applicant. If you take a vote tonight to invoke safe harbor, the applicant can either appeal it or not. And if it doesn't appeal it, then the applicant can basically tell you, please go forward with the hearing. And maybe the applicant wants to continue the dialogue and present information, present the hydrology study, present the traffic studies. You can allow that to happen. In fact, I'd recommend it. And so you can have your hearing as long or as short as you want it to be. You can then close your hearing and then you can issue a decision, which could be a denial or an approval with conditions. So it's really up to you how you want to proceed with the hearing, and it's also really up to the applicant whether they want to stick around and have a hearing.
Because you had said earlier that you recommend that we invoke safe harbor because we're in that position. But normally towns will go ahead and just keep going through the process like there's no safe harbor.
Well,
We just to get it out of the way so
no, I
mean-
think the difference is if the applicant wants to continue in the process, I think we have the ability to put more conditions with more teeth or more mitigation of these larger issues. So we could be more rigid on some of the waivers that they're seeking.
And if the applicant chose to withdraw till we're out of safe harbor, could be a different process for them.
If the town does fall out of safe harbor, which it may never fall out,
Yeah.
if the town keeps producing affordable housing, then the town could always be in safe harbor until it gets to 10%, then it's in permanent safe harbor.
Right.
But if the town were to fall out of safe harbor, yeah, any applicant that comes in, we're going back to the old rules.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, I get that.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
So it basically gives us more, as a board, more leverage as opposed to without safe harbor, any appeal is going to favor the applicant.
And if we're more specific about what we're not gonna allow and waivers, for them to appeal at HAC, it's not gonna be heard the same way as if we were not in safe harbor. Correct. Okay.
Yeah, it's
All
like
right.
it's like night and day.
Gotcha.
And I will say, even if we weren't in safe harbor, these traffic issues and the water quality issues would still be important and
Right.
actually may justify decisions that the board makes, such as making the project smaller or something.
Right.
So
Okay.
it's not to say that those issues don't have any weight without safe harbor. They still have weight.
Right.
It's just that now that we're in safe harbor, no one can really challenge that.
Gotcha.
If the board says, look, we're not comfortable with this project because of these big issues, the state has to accept that.
Right. Okay. Got it. All right. Thank you.
They have to accept it?
Yes.
So there's no appeal for what our decision would be?
They can appeal it, but they're not gonna win because
Oh.
we're in safe harbor.
So it's really up to the applicant how they want to move forward.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay. This is a new one for
Yeah.
us. Yeah.
Yes.
We haven't been in safe harbor the 10 years I've been here. So,
We were 1 foot in it
yeah.
last year.
Yeah.
So, I guess procedurally, Dan, does it make sense for us to take that vote now? Do we do it at the end of the meeting? What's your recommendation?
It's up to you. I think now that we've talked about it, if you wanna take the vote now, that's fine. It doesn't really matter. To get out of the way, take the vote, and then if you wanna hear from the public, or it's up to you.
All right.
With all these people, I think we should hear from the public at some time.
Peter,
Yeah.
Of course.
I
Peter,
mean,
Peter, when you talk, you have to move to your mic.
Should have longer mics.
And Mr. Chairman, you may wanna ask the applicant if they have a comment on the safe harbor. I mean, that might, I don't know if they do, but.
So, based on what you've heard about safe harbor, what is the applicant's position on that topic?
We'd still like to move forward.
Okay. All right. So at this time, I entertain a motion to invoke the safe harbor protection, or just safe harbor in general, relative to this application.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Do a roll call vote. Ms. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Mejia,
Yes.
and Mr. Thomas will be a voting member this evening.
Yes.
And chairman votes yes. All right, So,
Mr. Chairman, the process now is that the board needs to submit a letter. We did this at the last hearing, submit a letter to the applicant and to the state advising them of that vote, and then we just wait.
so
You write the letter, right?
to the applicant, I think what you can expect is, you know, we're going to have some concerns to be addressed regarding the density, the traffic and water and potentially other issues. So, you know, I'm not sure how you want to address that, and we can, I guess, decide this prior to scheduling the next hearing, which we'll do at the end of this meeting, but and how much time you'll need to come back with something addressing that. All right, any other comments from the board this time?
Just my opinion, if this got scaled down one hell of a lot, it would be a lot easier for all of us, but that's just my opinion.
All right, so.
And you have the ability to do that.
All right, so we're going to open the meeting to public comment, and the way we'll do this is that we'll have you approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. I'm not going to time it formally, but I'll keep an eye on the clock. Try to keep your comments to, let's say, 3 to 5 minutes. We can always come back to you, but just we'd like to have everybody that would like to speak have an opportunity to do so. So I don't know if you just want to start sort of at the front and go across. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lydia Bogar, 8 Bernard Road. I have an extended detailed letter that's been entered into the record, and I have just a few comments and question relative to that. The attorney is acting in lieu of town council?
He is our town council.
He is town council?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
He's ZBA's counsel.
Okay.
He's ZBA's counsel. He's not.
This board?
Yes.
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 Okay, beautiful. You have really done very short picture of the situation with the water district. If you had had a chocolate milk shower or washed cloth diapers in the past 2 months, you would be ready to burn something down. This has been a very serious problem. The water district has voted on bond money. We understand there will be 4 treatment plants built over the next 3 years, and it's going to cost us, those customers of the water district, a bloody fortune. I've only been in town for 53 years, so I'm not a townie yet. Peter could grant me townie status, but I don't think that'll happen. I would suggest a couple of different things. First of all, that the applicant and his engineers consult the stormwater plans for Country Plaza, not Stop and Shop. It was when Stop and Shop was built. If I remember correctly, that was VHB that did the engineering, and they had to go to China and back to put in an appropriate stormwater system. We were very fortunate on the Concom at that time that we had a hydrogeologist who was a member of the Conservation Commission. If you dig back to the order of conditions that was written in 83 or 84, you may find some comments on that. Traffic. I can't get out of my street now. And I come out across from Snow Road, Harris Road. I'm very curious to know what is the standard radius for Tower 1 Is it gonna take them more than one swing to get into that double barrel, if there is an emergency? I didn't see anything in your plan about trash and recycling, but I presume that's something that'll happen further down the road. The only other comment would be is that you should perhaps talk to either DPW or Lynch Corporation, who did the resurfacing of the street recently, and have a conversation with them about rats. Because we are gravel, our neighborhood, and then across up to Snow Road, there was a very serious rat problem when they reconstructed and then resurfaced Bernard Road going parallel along Worcester Street. My exterminator made a lot of money that summer. Thank you. Other than that, I am opposed to this plan overall. I'm very concerned about the turtles because the turtles they get run over because nobody slows down. They have been getting killed on a regular basis since the building at 103 Worcester Street was put in. And they have a retention pond. Go take a look at it. It's even more ridiculous than the one you have planned.
Where is 103 Worcester Street?
103 is the dentist's office.
Okay.
Directly, like diagonally across from CVS.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you for doing this. Anyone else in the front row or the second row?
Yeah, me. I've been dying. Lucy Beauregard, 31 Snow Road. I have a lot of issues, at least with the emergencies. That mean that for fire, police, security, anything, are we going to have to increase all our forces in order to help us with all these emergencies that could happen with this development? Also, my other concern also is the traffic, not only for cars, but also pedestrians. I mean, we're talking how many units? They're going to be walking down to CVS to grab a bus. I've seen people almost get run over just trying to cross 122. There's really no crosswalk, except the crosswalk is down by Stop and Shop. So if we don't have any lights to help us out, I mean, it's saying our prayer before even getting onto 122 from Snow Road. Also, Snow Road connects to East Street, and I hate to say this, but it's really kind of like a raceway. I mean, cars really speed quite a bit, and it can be very dangerous, as well as what this lady had mentioned with all the watershed and livestock, not livestock, but animals, wildlife. I don't know, I'm just concerned about it, not so much having the project there, but the amount of units being there. You know, if we can somehow reduce it down, have two-way access in and out of there, it might be easier. I mean, we have to think more about this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Ted Lazinski. I live right across the street at 13 Snow Road. And my driveway will be right where he plans to put his driveway. And, you know, it's going to be a little tough. It's tough now. And, you know, I mean, everything looks good on paper, like he showed us. Never works that way in life, okay? You got all kinds of recreation there. What, swimming pools? Kids don't want to hang out in swimming pools. They're going to hang out at the CBS. So you better be prepared for that. And other things, you know, he probably sells these to investors. So we're going to be looking at investors taking over. What else? Well, just a lot of things. You guys know better than I do.
Thank you. And Actually, if I can just ask a question, you can stop. He did raise a good question. Do you retain ownership and operate the developments?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Yeah, but how many of them are in residential areas, not, you build them on 122, 140, and they're major roads. This is a residential area. It's got single-family homes all around it, everywhere. Except, Maxwell, which is an elderly housing. Now, they're not gonna be happy about that either. 268, that's, you're talking about units. I'm talking about families. 268 families.
Hi, I'm Brian Bonner, 21 Snow Road. I just feel that the density of the development is too high. This is a residential area. It sounds like the developers know what they're doing. They have a very good product. But I would encourage them to maybe build there under the existing zoning bylaws. They've been in place to protect neighborhoods like Snow Road. And I think that we should continue to follow those rules, just like everyone else has for the last 20, 30 years on Snow Road. I live in a McGill house. I don't live in a 4-story apartment building. He followed the zoning rules when he built my house on Snow Road. If you do entertain waivers or not granting waivers, I would encourage the board not to allow them to get a waiver for the height. Anything over 2 stories would be out of place. Anything that's about the size of the Maxwell Drive, Maxwell apartments is probably in keeping with the neighborhood. Anything taller I would feel would be out of place and would be a bit intrusive in the neighborhood. They did mention the neighbors. There are 2 houses, I guess it's south on Snow Road, that would abut their property. Those are single-family houses between CVS and their entrance. So there are other neighbors besides the north and the west. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else in the second row that we missed?
Asador Badrikin, owner at 15 Snow Road, so I'm basically almost directly in front of this development. I've been there for 8 years, raising 2 kids. Snow Road, trying to get in and out, you're taking your life into your own hands. I've witnessed 4 accidents in front of Snow Road at the intersection of Snow Road and Worcester Street in the last 8 years I've been there. That's when I've been home, basically. So I've heard the accident, I've walked down, I've seen it. Trying to get out of Snow Road, it's impossible. Once that light turns green at Stop and Shop, it's a race strip. Trying to bend around that turn to Wheeler Road and coming from that side around that bend, you've got the next set of lights at the split there. Now our street, since I've been there 8 years, has become a cut through for people that are going to the commuter station, okay? In the mornings, in the afternoons, they cut through Snow Road to East Street. They make a left onto East Street to get onto either Route 30 or to get to the train station in Westboro. You can say there's not much traffic, but if you live on that street, if you live on Christmas Lane, if you live on Suzanne Terrace, Snow Road, any of the streets that are attached to Snow Road, I welcome you to come sit there at my house and watch the amount of cars that fly through there, whether it's at 6 a.m., at 2 p.m., or 1 a.m. on most nights. It's become basically a drag strip. There is no sidewalk. I have my youngest is 8. I can't put her on a bike. When she was born, Halloween night, she was almost struck with the crib because somebody was flying down that street. They missed that crib by about 6 inches. People are cutting through. You're not, you could say it's not a busy street. You could talk about just the one aspect of Worcester Street, but people are cutting through to East Street to get onto Route 30 or to get to Route 20 on the backside. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tony Sikora. I live at 3 Greeny Drive, right off of Snow Road. Long varied history with this developer. There was a development that went on 80 Snow Road, which I hope this town remembers because I still know and I still have to deal with the consequences of it. Site plans were never followed. He did not finish the project site the way it was supposed to. There was supposed to be clear line of sight from the other side of the railroad crossing to Greeny Drive. You were supposed to have a clean line of sight. The berms still exist. The stone wall still exists. And you have a Dover home, which has their entrance right there, which this developer forced Dover down this town's throat to put a Dover home in, which originally was planned. He took a single lot, split it in two, finagled land off the adjoining property so he could split it in two and give frontage to be able to do it, and was originally going to put 2 6,000-foot duplexes in. Now, everybody knows the area. Everybody lives in that area. You're planning on putting a project in that's going to bring over 600 people to this area from 122 to East Street. I'll bet you there's barely 600 people right now within that dense area. And you're going to put it on what, 17 acres, 20 acres? You're going to put that many people? Now, when this project was going through, I had the pleasure of sitting on or it was, I don't know if it was zoning board or one of the other meetings, that lollipops were not taken in this town. And when I mean lollipops is you have one entrance, a loop around the process, and that's it. You do not, and for 600 people, you got one way in and one way out for a hook and ladder for 4-story buildings. I'm gonna say this, thank you for invoking this safe harbor or whatever and doing it. I advise this board to nix this whole project and basically get down to, you heard everybody else, I'm not going to repeat all these things that went with Snow Road. I drive Snow Road every day. I'm a limo driver, so I drive it a lot because I pick up people in the neighborhood a lot. Project. That's really it. You know, I advise this board to do that and not go through it. Check with the other towns where all these projects went on and find out how many other towns have had problems with this developer. And I'm not afraid to say it because I fought him for 2 years and got him to get down to the houses that are in there. The neighborhood that I live in is not happy with what's there now, but we've accepted it. The biggest the tallest building in all of Greeny Snow Road area, number one, the house, and a Dover home next to a railroad track. Thank you.
Thank you.
You wanna let the applicant?
We'll finish the public comment and then we'll come back.
Excuse me. Sorry. I'm not good on my feet anymore. Rich Whitney, 13 Greeny Drive. And I'm glad that
you said what you said to the board, Dan, and we are in safe harbor. Okay? The only thing is, they offered tonight, as they were talking, about extending the sidewalk. Okay? That's 20 to 30 feet from where your entrance is. Now, last night at the Finance Committee, they went for $1.4 million, I think it was, or more, on Old Westboro Road. Okay? Right in the center of town, going down towards Adams Street. Okay? And it's gonna, the sidewalk's gonna go down. It's a citizen's petition. It's going in front of the town meeting. Okay? There was a gentleman that was delivering stuff and got hit. If there was no sidewalk there, if there was a sidewalk there, he wouldn't have. So you're looking at 500 more people, 250 more cars going to Snow Road, going down to Worcester Street, or heck with that, let's go up to East Street. What are we going to do at East Street? We're going to take a right, left. Now, all the people that are walking their dogs and their children are going to be on the side of the road right now. If you go up there, I go up there every day with my dump truck, and there's people, I swerve over into the other side of the road because there's not enough width of the road. There definitely needs a sidewalk, and I'll guarantee you within the next 2 years, the citizens from town of this area, if this thing gets built, will make sure that there's a sidewalk from East Street all the way down to Snow Road. Because if somebody gets hit, it comes back onto the developer, as far as I look at it. Because the board's allowing this, if you allow this. Okay? And that's what I'm talking about, the sidewalk. Yes, they are the ones who did 80 and 78 A and B. It's a shame that the plans somebody didn't follow through with the plans, because the site, it's terrible coming out of Greenie Drive to look down. And then when you come around the corner, the train tracks, the thing is down, and they were supposed to put in a fencing along the back. They never finished the project. They had the people in a home, the people that bought the home were in a hotel until the house got the occupancy permit. And then this piece of land that they're buying, or they bought, Bob Berger turned around and told the gentleman and a young lady on Snow Road, they bought it first. They put a deposit on it. They went to talk to Bob Berger. Bob Berger said, you can't build anything there. You're close to the well. And they wanted to put 2 apartment buildings in. He says, you can't do anything. So they backed out of the deal, and then that's when these people bought the place. Okay? And you're going to put them in a Zone 2 area. Let them do that. You're going to, give them a waiver. I say no. There's no way that we should. Right now we're going through brown water up on Greenie Drive and Tracy Inn. You all know that. You've heard it. And then right in front of this gentleman's property, the water main broke 2 nights ago. Okay? Last night. I'm sorry, last night. Okay? I'm old. I'm getting older. My birthday's next week. Okay, so Snow Road and East Street. What are we going to do about that with all the traffic coming out of there? Okay? That's another one. You can't put a light down the bottom of the hill at Snow Road, because if Peter remembers the school, they wouldn't allow us to put it on a Brigham Hill Road. The state wouldn't let us, and we fought like heck for that. Okay? So how are you going to get the people out of there? And now we're going to take a right turn. We're going to open up. Who gives them the permission to cut Maxwell Drive's property? Okay, to widen the road. Is it this board? Is it the select board? I don't know what the LIP program was giving them, or what they were giving in for the LIP program. Because I know you can ask for anything in the LIP program. Okay? So I don't know how much money's hands are going from one to the other to get this to where it is. My concern is, this is a dead horse. Let's bury it. Come back with a smaller plan, Mrs. Snow, that owned the property, would be more happier with 2 buildings. Okay? And the height is ridiculous in that area. I mean, poor Ted and his wife, they built that beautiful two-family house here just a few years ago. And now they're gonna have this monstrous across the street. You know? And the other thing is, it was, I'm gonna say 1985, 86 in that area. Because I just coming on to COMCOM, and there was a development that was stopped in South Grafton because of what Tony said, the lollipop. You got to have one way in and one way out. And that's what Chief Gothier, I believe, said back then. And the board here, the Zoning Board of Appeals, threw it out, said, we're not letting you do it. So they wouldn't give them a waiver. The people went away. Okay? I got one more on my list. I only had 5 things, but I jabber, you know that. Okay, so you're gonna take care of try to figure out something on the well. Oh, with the traffic study, how do you plan on doing that? That's what I'd like to know. Have somebody sit there, or are you gonna put people, you know, the old-fashioned car go over the little hose? How are we gonna do that? That's what I'd like to know. Could I get an answer out of anybody on this, from the attorney or the gentleman here?
So,
how are you gonna do, no, you guys,
well,
the builders.
It goes through the question.
Oh,
come through
Mr.
the chair.
Chairman, I'm sorry.
So on that, and we'll have our own traffic engineer
Okay.
that will review their study. And what we've done on other projects is request further analysis or
Okay.
further data collection. So, you know, depending on the days of the week or the time of year that the data was collected, it, you know, it may be different when school's in session versus out of session, or those
Yeah,
types
I
of
understand
things.
that, Bill.
So
I was just asking
we can
which,
ask for more data if, and we haven't gotten into that yet.
Yeah.
And when we have our traffic engineer review it, we'll get that feedback and potentially, you know, have some more.
All right, Bray. The other thing is, why I just thought of it now, is where you just took the thing and put us in safe harbor. I'm sorry. I don't usually stay up this late. But anyways, they still want to go forward, so we're going to have meetings more. Okay? But we're not allowing them, we're not giving them any permits right now, at all.
No, so this is a long.
I know, 6 to 8 months it could be, could even be, they don't come back for 2 years.
Well, but the 40B project itself,
Yeah.
we have to make a decision within 6 months.
Okay.
But there will be, I expect, iterations of the plans as we go. So my expectation is that, you know, the.
May I have your
we
permission, Mr. Chairman, to ask them, did you do 19 Canal Street in Millbury?
That would, the question comes through the chair.
Always.
I asked you. That's right. Can I ask them? Did they do 19 Canal Street?
Yes.
Okay. That's a beautiful project. Okay?
Thank you.
Because I looked at it today. All right? It's a beautiful project. If you did something like that on this property over here, I guarantee you, none of these people wouldn't bust them, to be honest with you, number one. But two, you know, Mr. Chairman, they haven't reached out to the neighbors. You know, it's just like the cell tower people did. They all got us together, put on a nice presentation at the high school, and invited us all. You know, and we talked in, they came in and we did the thing. So, I mean, you know, it's up to them. They want to go forward. They're going to have all these people behind them and then some. That's going to be nitpicking. I say, make it smaller, make it desirable, talk to the neighbors, talk to everybody, and then come back with a nice plan, not this monstrous high. I know building stuff and putting money in your pocket and, you know, is great, because I do it all day. But you got to do what you do, and please, Mr. Chairman, have them finish what they started before you give them any kind of consideration. Because if they didn't finish one job right, why should they have any permits from our town?
Thank you.
Hello, Wendy Allen, 8 Frankie Lane. I actually live right through the woods, and I'm actually very familiar with that area because my kids and I love to go in the woods. That vernal pool definitely fills up. It fills up that whole area. My son lost his shoe in that area because he got stung by like 21 bees and ran away and lost his shoe. So I know that area very well, and it is a lot of water that fills up there. So I wrote a long letter, and I had some of the points from my letter, and I was trying to decide where to start. And the first place I want to start is that I'm disappointed with this builder. One thing is that you didn't even seem to super prepare for this meeting. This isn't even a strength of mine to learn any of this stuff. And I was able to see and prepare for this meeting. The Traffic Safety Advisory Committee recommends a light, not a turning lane. They also recommend, which is something I had said in my letter, sidewalks all the way to Christmas Tree, because that would actually benefit the neighborhood. People from Snow Road walk in our neighborhood all the time, and it is amazing how many people walk, and guarantee that people from that property will come into our neighborhood and walk, which is awesome. We love it. So many dogs, so many people-friendly things. And I know we have obvious issues with the builder that we can find on YouTube. And I actually asked for police presence because I feel like upsetting people and it being on video and assaults happening, we should have protection against that. And the complaints are far and wide. Rice Pond Village is a big one. And there's been threats to withdraw and go hostile Chapter 40B. Like, no builder should say hostile to people that are concerned. There's so many concerns. If you search any of the Millbury sites, any of the projects.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt 1 second?
Yeah.
It's really important, I think, to stick to the issues.
Okay.
Not the developer's personality or trouble he's been in the past.
So, okay.
That's really not productive and it's not advisable.
Okay. So,
Thank you.
so I think what that speaks to that though is that there's so many projects that people are complaining about. There's zoning issues. If you search it, you'll find stuff. Manipulating is a word that someone used about him. Manipulating boards. So that's my concern, is that we make sure that we're dealing with people that will finish the job and do the job that they said that they were going to do and follow the rules.
So just on that issue, so part of this process is that before any development begins, and we have multiple of these projects happening presently, the developer has to provide a bond, and that bond isn't released until everything is completed. And it's a big process, and we're still going through this process on projects that are, 99% done, and there's very small things that, our engineer, will find, but if you walked around it, you wouldn't notice. But there's funds held to ensure those things get done. So
That's helpful. Thank you. That's why I was hoping something like that happens. Okay. All right. So we talked about the traffic, and I definitely agree, like you had said too, that you cannot see if you're trying to turn left. And if you add a lane to the right, it's going to be so much harder to see. There were 6 cars behind me on my way to the football game, turning off of Snow Road, trying to go left. And 6 cars behind me. Like, that's a lot. If any of those cars are turning right, I'm never turning left because I'll never be able to see. And the light, it's been debated if that is allowed or not by the state because it's so close to Stop and Shop, but that's definitely an issue. It really is. As one of my neighbors said, like, there's a lot of accidents there. And then, so the well is definitely a concern of mine. And I actually read like bylaws and stuff to learn how this works. But, as you've already heard, we already have lots of problems with our discolored water, low water pressure. The water main literally broke right there on Snow Road. You have a question? Oh, you're just stretching.
Yeah, just sorry.
And then, but one of them we didn't talk about, and I'm not sure if I misunderstand this, but it's bylaws 7.4A and 7.4B outline the allowed uses within the Water Supply Protection Overlay District. And it lists like a bunch of things, but multi-unit housing was not listed as allowed. So I was a little surprised about that one. And then also, on Monday night at the water department's meeting, they alluded to water bans possibly being a thing. So adding in more like high density units would definitely be concerning. They were mostly talking about for the summer, but that's not an issue. And then, so for some of my environmental concerns, definitely the turtles are a concern. There's other things. There's like a blue salamander that one of my neighbors had found or something like that. It's not quite endangered, but it's definitely a concern. And then obviously any other wildlife that would be displaced because there's tons of wildlife back there. And then, so I really think the environmental study needs to be very thorough and get information from neighbors. I'm curious how the pool is going to work because I personally had to go and get the environmental portion on my pool and say like how my pool will be discharged. And I did not get a pool filter that I have to backwash because I didn't want to put chlorine because I am very close to what we call muddy pond, which is that more wetlands area that you can see there, and I didn't want to put any like chemicals back there unnecessarily. So I'm curious how a pool is going to work there because I'm assuming that we'll have to go through like extra stuff, and a pool of that size I'm assuming would have to have a lot of chlorine and a lot of discharge. And then my other concern, I have a lot of concerns about different things like ice melt and things going into that, but the dog waste. Obviously people are supposed to pick it up, but if you look on anything, you'll hear about people complaining about dog waste not being picked up. So that would definitely concern me as well, going into like the well area and into like where the vernal pools are and things like that. So there's definitely a lot of things that concern me with that. And I'm curious to see the study. I really want to see the environmental study because just off the top of my head, I can think of so many things that can cause concerns. And then along the lines, Matt, directly next to the project, sold his house because of this project. So it's definitely disappointing and it's impacting our neighborhood. People are definitely concerned, and I would love to see some modest 3-family homes built there. Like, or townhouses, like 10 or something, that doesn't take up a ton of the land, stays away from the well, and can provide homes for families in Grafton. That's what I feel like people are always looking for, is like 3-bedroom affordable homes. So that's just my opinion on what would be nice for the land if it has to be homes for people. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Bill Yeomans, Providence Road, South Grafton. I'm a former member of this board, and I resigned in July, August for personal reasons, and I'm speaking tonight as a private citizen with a concern. And Katrina, if you could pull up this particular map,
This is a map that I produced.
Bill, you
Yep.
have to speak in
Oh,
the
yeah,
mic.
okay. I've never learned.
No.
This is a map that is available on the website and it's been posted. And this will show you, and are you pulling it up, Katrina, on the?
Takes me a minute.
Okay.
I'm getting there.
While she's bringing up this map that went with my comments to the CBA members. So you can see this particular map shows the outline of the wellhead protection area in pink. And if you look at the detail of the map, the wellhead protection area zone 2 outlined in pink on the left is a 329 acre area that totally surrounds this site. I created this map because I objected to this proposal with the governor, with Ed Augustus, and I still object to this proposal for one main reason, and many people here tonight have brought up multiple reasons, but I think that the town of Grafton should pay very close attention to the water. And I'm probably the oldest guy in this room, or the oldest person in this room, and I'm not going to have to deal with the water problems that you all can create tonight. And I just like to point out a couple of points. This project is going to be built on 14.6 acres, and it's located totally within a wellhead protection area, Zone 2, as Dan pointed out. And this area was originally approved by Mass DEP to recharge the aquifer, which provides water to the existing wells. And that's what we're dealing with. The developer had to answer a development impact statement and the existing soil type. There was a question there, and as he acknowledged tonight, it's 99% of that parcel is well-drained soil. It's very porous soil that's been feeding that aquifer for generations in this town. If you look at that map, there are two wells on the East Street side, and there's the other Worcester Street well, which is located behind Stop and Shop, and this parcel abuts that zone well of that zone 1 of that wellhead area. And again, this impact statement, one of the questions was, what kind of impervious area will your project produce? This project is going to produce 7.5 acres of new water impervious surfaces where almost none existed before. There's a ranch house on this parcel of land. And so if you take 324,522 square feet, that's a lot of area. Actually, to put it in perspective, it's 5.63 football fields that they're going to pave over with either buildings, roadways, but it's going to create, by their calculations, by their filings, it's going to create a massive amount of impervious surface area in an area that's feeding 3 wells of the Grafton Water District. I was astounded when I wrote my comment relative to this project. I suggested to the board that you deny this project and have them go back to the drawing board because there was no consideration given nor any discussion on their existing conditions. They didn't even acknowledge on that plan, which is Plan 3 on their sheets, if you want to look at it, that the existing conditions, they didn't even mention the wellhead protection area zone 2. I submit to you that, 5 football fields, and it's what is happening now. A recharge aquifer, an aquifer is recharged with the rainwater coming down into the field. How long has that field been there supplying those wells? It's been forever. That little lady that lived there that someone referred to, it was a ranch house. And now we're going to go from hard surfaces that are impervious to water, and we're going to go to a hard surface of 5.7 football fields versus a ranch. Forgetting anything else, and all of the concerns expressed are valid concerns, but I think that you as a board have to look very hard at this project and any project. When I wrote to the governor and to Ed Augustus, I said none of these projects should be allowed to go forward in a wellhead protection area zone 2, period. Now, they didn't agree with me. Obviously, this has progressed. But I think that they made a mistake. I think that the Board of Selectmen giving this a lip approval, I think they made a mistake. And I think it's dependent on the board to really look hard at the issues and the water issues, because, and I'll close with this statement. I remember my late brother, one of my late brothers, he visited me a couple of years before he died. He died from COVID in Arizona. And he said he had a picture, and it was a picture of a house and a development, and the picture said, "What's your house worth without drinking water?" And that's what I think the town has to focus on with this project and any other project. And many of you have heard me repeat this song and dance on some of the previous projects, but I just ask that you pay close attention to this. And the last point I'll make, if this does go forward, I ask that you direct, as we did on the Pleasant Street project, that the buildings go into the roof, the rain runoff, be captured in subsurface infiltration systems, not as part of the drainage that's going to drain to the lowest part of that lot. And I'll read that statement. This is from the developer answering the mitigation impacts and stormwater. Any runoff from the infiltration basin, which is going to be in the back of this parcel, and it's a 200-foot buffer that they've planned to mitigate the impact on the well itself, that discharges towards the isolated at the eastern property line, which is the lowest portion of the site. This maintains this existing drainage path on the site. There's no drainage on the site. It's an open field. What were they thinking when they wrote this statement? It's very misleading. There's no drainage. The only drainage that's occurred on that site is the rain comes down, the porous soil accepts the rain, and it goes down to the aquifer, and it keeps the wells full. So with that, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We do have some hands raised online.
All right.
Tony Segura again, 3 Green. I have one other thing, and this is mainly for the board. We're talking a huge development. I moved to this town 28 years ago. I remember when William Street project went in effect, when we put William Street in. How many homes was it? 200? Maybe 150? It was like 300. It was a massive, it was a large section that went in off of William Street. What did this town have to do to support that population increase? I remember a new school had to go in place. Is this board also has to consider, you're bringing 600 people. How many of them are kids? How is our school system right now? We just built a new high school. I've heard rumors that we're overpacked already, that the schools are full. What are we gonna do? Another new school? 2 new schools? The fire department's up on the hill. It's also gotta get up the hill. You know, what is that 600 population of people population gonna do to this town? Keep it balanced. Don't let this go through at all. Thank you.
Are you talking about Milford Road? You said
William Street.
William Street's in Upton.
Part of that's Grafton.
Milford Road.
That's
Milford Road.
Okay,
Milford
Milford
Road.
Road.
William
Okay.
Street turns into Milford Road.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. It's by Klondike, where it goes up the
Right,
hill and
yeah,
everything in
that's
there.
Milford Road
Okay,
in Grafton.
okay. I knew it as William Street. I've been here, but I remember that project going in. When they put that in, this town was like, whoa, what are we gonna do? All of a sudden, we have to put all this stuff in. You know, look at what your taxes have done.
256 units.
Bingo. You're tripling that now, almost. Something to think about, which hasn't been brought up, I guess, in all the conversations. Thank you.
Hi, sorry, Tammy McClure at 24 Suzanne. Sorry, I just wanted to expand a little bit on the school thing, but I actually had another issue. So I know the school committee has said that they've done a study and we have room in our schools. I would really like to see that study for the North Grafton Elementary and North Street School because they are definitely packed. I understand that there's room in the high school, but that's not going to help us with our 2nd, 3rd, 4th graders or our 1st graders. So I really feel the school thing is an issue. We're already having issues at North Street, needing a new roof. We're having a lot of trouble with that. But let's assume we only have, out of the 256, maybe 50 kids. That's still a lot. Or if we have seniors, it's all a lot in our system. So I understand that we do want people in our town. We do want to be able to offer services, and it has to be for everything. I happen to have 2 young kids, and I'm live at Suzanne. So obviously the school system is really important to me. The thing I would like to bring up is that I am on Suzanne. I'm at the bottom of the hill, and as it is, I am across the street from where my neighbors abut the development. When you put the development in, I don't think anyone's taken into consideration the amount of flooding that will happen because all the trees that are being removed, they will end up going downhill, and we are literally right there. So I guess my question would be, how much responsibility would the developer have in taking into account that our properties will be damaged and flooded, especially the basements? So that's a huge thing too. Obviously, the water and the traffic studies, and this is in a huge development that really is just too much. But I am concerned about the flooding and other things too. So I just wanted to, bring that up to attention. Thank you.
That brings up a curious question. Under safe harbor, can we finally consider school population?
Sure.
We couldn't before, really.
Right.
Interesting.
But the school department did not comment.
But we can ask a direct question.
Probably.
Say Valentine, 19 Suzanne Terrace.
Can you step up to the mic? There you go.
I can, but I don't think I need it, and I'll apologize for all my
Well,
comments.
no, if you're not in the mic, the video can't pick up your voice. That's why.
Thank you for explaining. Could you kindly bring up the map that you had originally?
Which one? Dan's map?
Yes,
or
please.
Yeah,
Dan's
sure.
map?
Yep. Give me 1 sec.
Yes, thank you.
You're
so
welcome.
much. That rectangular squiggle?
This right here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's my backyard. That vernal pool, that rectangular with the little, looks like a rectangular cloud. That's my backyard. That vernal pool, I cannot tell you the beautiful stuff that comes out of there. Dragonflies, turtles, salamanders, monarch, but everything comes out of that vernal pool. That project will, and no doubt, affect that vernal pool. Absolutely affect that vernal pool because it's going to be on a hill. And I don't care if they're giving a 200-foot buffer, all of the salt and sand that they put down for the plowing and is gonna, all of it is gonna run downhill into that vernal pool. That is my biggest concern at this time. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. All right, this will be the last question in the room, and we'll go to online.
I just want to make a side note, okay?
Your name again, sir?
Ted Luzinski on 13 Snow Road. Right now, as it is, our water, we don't drink it. I have to go down to, once a week, go down to the Polar bottling plant and get my water out of a vending machine. So I pay $1,000 a year for water, which I can't use. Second of all, how do you sell a house that it's got bad water?
All right. Katrina, do you want to see what the
Yep.
comments online?
Mr. K, you can speak. I need your name and address, please. Oh, hold on.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Tim Carriga, 25 Suzanne Terrace. My house and property directly abuts the potential development. And I just have a few concerns I want to echo and bring up. The first one I think everybody is concerned with is the sheer size and scope of the project. And I think that translates to, first and foremost, the traffic. Anybody who's ever driven down Snow Road, taking a left onto Worcester Road it's impossible. People come out of that light and the previous gentleman said it's a drag race. You can't get out. You're literally taking, a chance to jet out into traffic, and it's pretty bad. So that's a huge concern I know for myself, my neighbors in the neighborhood, and all of our kids. I don't let my kids walk down that road because it's not safe as it is, and that's not even with the development. So that's the first concern. The second concern is the stormwater and the drainage. It might be a flat site, but there's about a 15-20 foot drop off going down into my backyard and the yards of everybody abutting the property to the north. And I think that's a huge concern that, how are the developers going to work with that and work with us to prevent that and, mitigate any issues that there are. I think the last thing is, depending on where this goes, I think, the developers said earlier that they want to work with everybody about the project, and that's great. But, I can speak for myself and just my property is having a buffer and not having a huge duplex, towering over my fence into my pool and my young kids. I mean, that's a huge concern. That there's going to be some respect to the neighborhood and just not, coming in, building a 268 unit over, 500 people, all these cars, all the traffic that just comes in and, frankly disrupts the entire neighborhood that, is functioning, just in a neighborhood way. Everything's smooth right now, and having that come in just really disrupts everything. And I think that's a huge issue. And, I don't want to speak just for my property, but also for the concerns of anybody on Snow Road and anybody in the neighboring, neighborhoods, Greenie, Suzanne, Christmas Tree. I think this is a huge disruption to life in this area. And then, of course, when it goes on to Worcester Road, it starts to impact the entire town. And I think there are major issues and concerns that need to be addressed and looked into in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else online want to speak? Raise their hands and then put them down. No one else online wants to speak? The hands went up and then they went down.
What about the Q&A?
Oh, they were just telling me I was muted
Oh, okay.
and that they couldn't see something when Dan was trying to show it because I had to share the screen.
Okay. All right. So, does the applicant want to respond to any of the comments that were raised by public comment?
The only other item
For whatever reason, your mic's not working, so I just need you
Okay.
to go up to the podium. I'm sorry.
just to provide some clarification, I know you had a question about the amount of impervious area that's allowed. Under the, it does say 25% is allowed to be impervious. We're at 51%. In the regulations under the Water Supply Protection Overlay District, it does allow, it says limitation of impervious material. It allows up to 75% of the lot to be rendered impervious. It says provided that techniques satisfying the requirements set forth above are used to maximize groundwater recharge without risking groundwater contamination, which means treating the water, capturing as much water as you can. And then it says the other areas should be planted, landscaped with stable material, lawn areas, etc. So I just wanted to point out it is allowable to go up to 75% of impervious area, just as a point.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I can. And so, thank you. And I think that's why I phrased the question the way I did about looking to see if there was anything specific that you guys were trying to do to go above and beyond to make sure that as much was getting recharged as possible. Because yeah, there is the discretion to go up to 75, but that 25 is there for a reason too.
Right. I just wanted to point that out.
Sure.
I'll just say a couple things about the impact, this development. These developments, they're professionally maintained. We have professional landscapers, so what you'll get is you'll get landscapers to come in here and remove the odd waste. It won't be dumped in the wetlands like is done in a lot of smaller developments. As far as pet waste, yeah, pet waste is a problem. We do doggy DNA and we analyze every dog pet before it comes into our development, and it's monitored, and if there's any waste that's left over, we know whose dog it is. They get a fine, and the fine increases. And so we've had one development, we had somebody was fined twice. We increased the fine a third time to $250. There's no more fines. This is what you get with a professionally managed development, and I can tell you that this will be one and the same. The one gentleman asked if it would look as nice as Canal Street. No, it won't. It will look nicer. And I can say that with confidence because 19 Canal Street, we built 59 units on 2.5 acres. So we have more space in Snow Road. We can space things out. We can have more green space. We can have more amenities. We plan to have a walking path to go around the complete perimeter. And we have a walking path in every one of our developments, and these are open to the public. And we've provided parking space. And the last one on Trailside, we worked with the board, and we've actually provided parking for abutters and other town people to use our space, because our space is not, we don't put no trespassing signs, we don't put not allowed. Our developments are open walking paths. A lot of character assaults on me. I can tell you that, yes, I was falsely accused. Yes, it was thrown out. Yes, I was never arrested. I have no record. And I'm sick and tired of these character assaults. And I want to let the public know it's really kind of low to go there. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Anything else from the board at this time? We've closed for public comment. At the next meeting, you're welcome to speak. All right. So let's see. We're gonna need to continue to another date.
Right, but if you're declaring safe harbor, we've gotta wait for them to.
No, you could continue it to a date certain that's beyond their appeal date, just so
Yeah.
you have a date
Right.
set up, and you can always continue it further without having the hearing. So I would recommend like a month out.
So yeah, I would say, so we're looking at November 7th. Because the 31st is Halloween. We have a meeting next week on the 10th. So you wouldn't want to do it on Halloween, so I would suggest the 7th, but that's your call.
We can't do so.
So,
Turkey. But who's bringing the turkey?
Yeah. And McCusker, I'm sure we'll watch this and do a Mullen.
could we do a Wednesday?
We could.
November 7th.
Would can you do the 6th, Judy?
No,
Or
I'm
not that
out
week?
the whole week.
Okay.
I mean, he could still do a Mullen, it's
Yeah.
early on, but
Yeah, especially where he's the alternate vote anyway.
yeah,
It's less of a concern.
because I'm sure Bill will watch it tonight.
Yep. He will.
I know I'm in the same boat, but I'm out that week as well.
All right, so I guess let's do the 7th.
Okay.
That's best.
Does that
Don't-
work for?
Don't leave yet, because I need you guys to, somebody to sign the continuation that Brian has.
The 7th works for your team? Yes. So, in terms of peer review, that account's been funded, I believe, right?
Yes. Yep.
So, has Jeff seen these yet?
Jeff has all the plans, yes, he's probably started working on them, so I just need to let him know when the next meeting is and when we want him here.
Okay. We definitely want to have the traffic study reviewed. And then, Dan, for a hydrogeologist, or is it a hydrologist or hydrogeologist?
Same thing.
No.
It's all the way you pronounce it.
Technically, hydrology is surface water, hydrogeology is underground, but this project involves both. And
I don't know if, do you know who the town has used before on previous 40Bs, or is there someone that you would recommend to us?
I mean, previous 40Bs, we've only used Scott Horsley, and we brought him in, I think, twice in my tenure.
Yeah.
So, and he's probably the best hydrologist in the state. So I would recommend that we bring him in, but I think the first thing we should be doing is asking the applicant to provide their own analysis. which is what's contemplated in the bylaw.
So, do you have someone that you already work with?
Not recently, but we can make a few phone calls, see who has done work in the area, and engage someone.
All right. So that's, I guess we'll need you to get us that. So it's probably not something that we'll address at the next meeting. We'll get it to, so that may be a few meetings out.
What you could do though is you could ask them tonight to line up somebody, a hydrogeologist, and to provide a report by the next meeting, which is more than a month out.
It's 5 weeks out, so.
And then we can decide at that point, you know, if you want to hire somebody to review it, if so, who, and we have plenty of time to get that work done. So I would focus on just, you know, getting the civil and the traffic peer review underway. And I guess that's also assuming that the applicant wants us to do that. I mean, are you planning on filing an appeal from the safe harbor?
We're not sure.
Okay. Because, I mean, if we do peer review, that's costing money and it's your money. So, I mean, it's really up to you. If you want us not to engage.
No, we want to move forward.
You do?
Yes.
Okay.
So then Jeff on civil, and then for traffic, do you want to use Kevin again with tech, or do you want to get some other names?
He was pretty responsive, I think, wasn't he?
Kevin.
Yeah.
Dondre.
Pleasant Street.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I'd like to see on, and I haven't really read this thing on traffic, is that they do an actual count. And I don't mean somebody sitting there, put the tapes across.
Yeah, I think they have counts, and maybe they can address that. But I looked at the traffic report, and
Was there something last time they just did some kind of state estimate that's acceptable?
No, they
That
did
was-
counts, but it was during COVID.
COVID,
so-
that was for Elm Rock, that was for
Okay.
yours.
Oh, no, actually, I had them put tapes up on mine.
Yeah, but there was another one during COVID.
And it
that-
wasn't really.
And it wasn't really
realistic.
valid, but we had to take it.
Yeah.
so they did have, I think, accurate counts go out there and put speed tubes down, which is the most accurate way
The
of doing
black
it.
things that go.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm
And-
calling them tapes, but I know I'm using the wrong word.
Tubes. But the question that I would ask, and I want our traffic engineer to ask, is where were those speed tubes put? I saw some reference to the Stop and Shop driveway, which doesn't make sense. And the tube should go in the location of their driveway on Snow Road. So maybe that happened. Maybe I just misread it. So the question is, where were those tubes placed, and when were they placed? Were they placed for a week, 2 days, on a weekend? Was it a holiday? You know, all that's very important. Was it raining out? Like it needs to be done. Ideally, at least 2 days consecutively, midweek, with dry weather.
With school traffic.
Yes. Yep. Ideally, more than 2 days, but so we can evaluate that after our traffic engineer takes a look at it and gives you his expert opinion. But
And it's only 2 days,
that's a minimum.
really?
Yeah. That's the accepted minimum, but you can ask for a weekend day. I mean, a lot of towns say, "Hey, look, our traffic's actually worse on a weekend," and maybe the neighbors might testify to that too. That maybe weekend traffic's bad. And we heard a lot of talk tonight about the peak hours, the morning and night, where there's a lot of cut-through traffic. So we want to make sure that the traffic counts, the counts accounted for all that as well. But
Well, that we get the working person's count, and it's not just a Sunday and a Monday holiday.
Right. Yeah, it's not going to be helpful. So, ideally you'd have 2 consecutive weekdays in a non-holiday week during school time, and then ideally you'd have a weekend day just so you have a snapshot of what that looks like on the street. So there are other people. I mean, Kevin's fine. I've also worked with other traffic engineers who work for towns as peer reviewers. I worked with somebody actually really great in Brookline last year. There's a lot of people that do this, so I'm happy to give you maybe 3 names if you want to think about it, or if you like Kevin.
Why don't you do that?
Okay. So we can decide that at the next meeting.
Okay.
So that makes sense. Have Jeff start with the civil and then talk about traffic next
Yeah,
time.
I'll let him know.
And then for the next meeting, I probably recommend that you have the applicant bring perhaps their traffic engineer to make that presentation. Or, well, maybe it might make more sense to wait on that until our traffic engineer is retained. But I guess at the next meeting, we could have Jeff's report and we can have that discussion on civil engineering. Because by then Jeff will be done, I think.
He should be. I'll let him know tomorrow.
Actually, we should make sure he's available.
I will. I think we're far enough out.
Yeah.
Unless he's out of town, that would be the only hiccup. But he could probably send one of his guys too.
And election is on Tuesday, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, election is Tuesday, the 5th.
Mr. Chair, Bill, there was a comment on the school district, right? Is it possible to get a letter from them?
They were given the whole submission. They did not comment. They gave me no comments, and I did send out an email to all the departments that I didn't get comments on by Monday. Everybody responded but the school department. I can reach out again, but every department gets the entire submission. I hand delivered it to every department in town.
I'll reach out to.
Because it sounded like the elementary school was in jeopardy more than the high school.
I'm sure it is.
You could ask the applicant whether they've done any kind of analysis as to how many school children might be generated by the project. I thought I saw something about 13.
We did. Actually, it's, unfortunately, we actually, have very few age children. It's kind of sad. But
Chair,
it's a real.
again. So in our developments, everything we own, we see 3 school-age children per 100 units. The state average from MHAB is 9.8, and the national average is 11 per 100 units.
Why do you think yours are so low?
I'm not really sure, but that's what it is across everything we own.
You also mentioned yours did not have a lot of affordable housing.
So generally, I walk my properties. I interact with my tenants, and we get a number of younger people just starting out, and we get a number of people of seniors that are downsizing. The people in the middle, they tend to want to live in single family homes. It's not really the type of living that they generally do. We did hear some comments from some Grafton people that you were looking for more 3-bedrooms. We do have a higher 3-bedroom count here. We weren't sure exactly what your goals were, and if you thought that was a good idea, a bad idea. We can modify the number of 3-bedrooms, 2-bedrooms. So actually, most of the developments, we did the state minimum, which was 10%. And this one here, I think did we go 20%?
20.
We got 20, and mainly because we had a number of townhouses, and we did that mainly as a buffer between the other neighborhood and the taller buildings. We thought that was an appropriate design. So we can modify that too. We wanted to work with the board on that number, the 3-bedroom count. But I can tell you that the number of school-age children is real low.
That's interesting.
Mr. Chair. Do you have similar townhomes in any of your other developments? I wonder if that would change the mix. If, with that middle group, like you say, gravitating maybe more towards single-family homes, I wonder if that population could be more likely to land in the townhomes, and so that could throw the numbers off.
It may change the mix, but generally society itself is, without getting a long thing. I mean, both my grandparents had 18 and 12 kids in the family. My parents had 6 kids in the family. My children have 2, and children, and all my friends, they only have like 2. They're waiting longer to get married. The girls are in their late 30s, and they just can't have big families. So we're not getting big families.
But specifically, have you
But about
had
the town,
this mix?
yeah, no, we haven't had this mix. So this would be a little bit different.
Sure.
I do know other developers who have done these, and I could maybe look into getting those statistics. But we would naturally expect that more three bedrooms would generate more percentage of school age children. Yes, I would think so. And I didn't know, some towns we actually work in, they're actually trying to get us to encourage more families with more children. So I didn't know where Grafton was going. I heard some people say yes and some people say no. So that would be up to the board if you wanted to have, give us some direction on that. We'd be open to that.
And I would assume that, I think you can expect that we're gonna push back on the building height and the density, but within whatever the structures are, I assume there's flexibility with bedrooms and,
There is.
makeup of those.
The thing about the big buildings is the elevators are a very expensive component, and we built some buildings without elevators. The thing is they weren't senior friendly and people with disabilities. So we think that's an important part of the equation. Is there's a lot. Our senior population is growing. I'm one of them. I can still do the stairs pretty good, but something could happen tomorrow and then I can't, or maybe my wife couldn't. So the elevators are expensive, and we need the bigger buildings, the multi-story, in order to afford the elevators. You can't do them in small, short buildings.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just another factor that we find. I mean, we're building something that we want to make work in the community.
Okay. All right, so I think next time we'll do civil engineering review. And hopefully you'll have your hydrologist report. We can engage a hydrologist at that point. All right, so I think we need a motion to.
Well, could we also request the water district for an opinion of their zone 2?
I can tell you, we can request it. I don't know that we're gonna get anything
Well,
satisfying.
at least we tried.
Yeah.
What was it you wanted, Peter?
Just how they feel about this being in the zone 2.
And abutting zone 1.
Closing, closed.
I guess I just want something official for them, from them.
Okay.
All right, so we'll need a motion to continue this hearing to November 7th, we said?
Mm-hmm.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Mejia?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Chairman votes yes.
Thank you.
Don't leave yet. Hold on. Do you have the?
Oh, yeah. And then we just need a motion to adjourn.
No, I need him to sign it, then I'll have you sign it.
And thank you all, everyone that came from the abutters and from the public. Thank you very much for your comment.
So you haven't denied this project?
No, and there honestly won't be a vote on this project for a while.
Keep coming back.
So I move that we
We need an
adjourn.
extension, aren't we? Just in the process.
It's the process, yeah.
we did it that
So we need to do that every
just do
every
that?
meeting?
No,
Yes.
didn't you just say someone
We need
needs
a
to
motion.
move that we need to
I
adjourn?
haven't had to do that anywhere else.
If we do it all the
Somebody
time,
can
we've always
so
said
move
it,
it
it wasn't
yourself.
always getting
What was the
done.
motion I just made?
To continue the hearing.
Continue.
It would get done, but it would get emailed and then got brought
Second.
back and.
Dan already left.
The end of each meeting, by 40
Dan's
Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Adams? Yes. Mr. Mejia?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas? Yes. Everyone votes yes.
I need to go home.
All right, thank